This is the Doubtless podcast, here to help you change from a state of doubt and insecurity towards a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. I'm your host, coach and psychologist Julian, and my guests are remarkable, ambitious humans who share their stories of doubtful moments, of their insecurities, and how that shaped their successes today. You're meant for more. That was John Burnett's talk at the Nomad Fest in Bansko last year. That's where we met. And after his talk, it was so inspiring to continuously talk to him. So we met a couple of times and had fantastic conversations. And so that was the reason why I wanted to interview him as well. It took quite a while for us to publish it, but so this is the podcast with John. You're meant for more. And he shares incredible insights into his history and how he grew up, his parental influences, and also his struggle with self-doubt, his difficulties and how he moves through with it. Gratitude is a big one. And the continuous power, the continuous will to improve other people's lives. And one of the biggest influences that he sees there is vulnerability. For him to share his own struggles and going through those tough times and telling other people about it was one of the biggest ways for him to deal with self-doubt. So I'm looking forward to share this episode with you. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it.
I want to make sure, I feel like when I look back, the reasoning comes through, the meaning behind it comes through, but I haven't stopped to consider. And I was telling her this morning, I was like, I do think there is a very real theme throughout my life that hopefully is inspiring. That's my desire, is to inspire. I want that to, whether it's, I used to work with young kids in Central America. They were trying to survive another, and I'm talking to them about dreaming, and nobody's ever given them permission to dream, because they're just, maybe the dad's not even there. Who knows, maybe the mom's not there, but it's like every day just trying to make it, not knowing, not trying to get out, trying to do something more. And I can remember this boy named Omar, and knew Omar for quite a bit of his life, and took him and some other kids and worked with them on dreaming and goal setting, what their life to look like in the future. And Omar said he wanted to be a mechanic, work on cars. And the American in me wanted to go, hey, dream bigger, But the reality is, in that country, you could tell almost every year that more cars were coming. But so many of the cars were used cars. Mechanic was a very highly sought after position. And so helped him get into a trade school. He graduated. He's a mechanic now for an oil company. He's done phenomenally. He has a wife, child, and to look and see that you could have never seen that 20 years ago when we first met him. And so it's because sometimes you do look around the country and here we are in the middle of Bulgaria, and these people are just getting up and going, and so when I talk about dreams, what does that even mean to someone who's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to go work at the flower shop or work at the grocery store. So anyway, but that's awesome. Definitely thematic in my life. Anyway.
Inspired, yeah. I want to ask you, what were one or two events in your life that were very significantly shaping the way you are right now, or who you are today?
Yeah. I think the first one that came to mind is started in my childhood, and I had a very hard father, but a very encouraging mother. And I talk about if I went to my mother today, she's 85, and I said, "Hey, I think I'm supposed to run for president of the United States," she would say, "Yes, do that. You will be a great," she's that kind of. She always, whatever I put my mind to, she believed I could. And when I was very young, I had the goal of playing football in college
Hmm.
for university, Texas A&M University in Texas, and that became a big theme of my childhood. I loved football. I can look back now and see that my father went to Texas A&M, and that probably trying to win his favor, and that
Hmm.
probably played into it. I can see that now, but at the time, I loved the school. We would go to football games down there, and I loved it. And so I wrote down when I was maybe 8 or 9 that I wanted to play football. That was a goal that I set when I was very young. And but when you're young, what do you know? I'd played a little bit of football, but you're little league, you're a little kid, and as you get older, it becomes real, and then you start getting recruited to go play at different schools, and but dreaming to play for them, and then making the decision to go there, and then I ended up playing for them,
Hmm.
and we won 3 championships. And my last game, I in the States, the best football player in the country wins the Heisman Trophy.
Okay.
I did not win the Heisman Trophy. I was not the best. I was nowhere close. But in the last game of my career, I tackled the Heisman Trophy win. So I had a big play and a big game, and we Notre Dame was the university that
Hmm.
we beat, and so that was a big deal. And the thing that happened is 2 things. Number one, I had a childhood into young adulthood dream that the focus, effort, the discipline, working out, running, getting stronger, getting faster, all of those things, while I wasn't the greatest player ever, it allowed me to live at least part of my dream out and
Hmm.
have a pretty cool story to tell. And then because of that, it shaped other things I believed could be possible.
Mm.
Uh, because I achieved something. People laughed at me when I said I'm going to play football. They're like, whatever,
Yeah.
you're not even that great in high school. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I was okay. And so, but fighting through that, the people that said you can't, and believing that I could, and then achieving and
Hmm.
graduating, and then because of my history then in sports, I was very comfortable working to get jobs with sports networks, when a lot of people thought, you can never get a job in sports. That's too big. And I just had a comfort level that I could do. I, I just achieved a big dream. I can do anything, kind of thing. And so believing in myself, and then if I worked hard enough and took chances and put myself out there in it, but it all started with that dream of playing college football and then achieving that. So
So
yeah.
boosted your sort of self-esteem, and knowing when you put your mind to something, you with enough effort you can achieve that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and other people. I was around those type of
Hmm.
people because other people had those dreams too, and a lot of the guys that I played football with played in the NFL at the highest level in the States. So that was a really big deal too. It's not just living it and achieving it myself, but also being around other people, some far more talented than me, some not as talented, some very similar, but all of us pushing towards something bigger than ourselves, and then achieving it was a really big deal, and kind of did set me up mindset wise to believe things that I think most people would not even try. They would just settle. Yeah.
Okay. And is that you mentioned your mom in the beginning? Is that sort of coming from her? Because your dad was, you said, was quite different.
Yeah, he is a very encouraging person, but I was the only. There's four children, but I was the only male.
Hmm.
Um, and I was very different than him, and so we just never had a real strong relationship. We did things together, but it's there's a term, and you probably know from your education, that is it's healthier to have a parent that is completely absent than to be physically present but emotionally absent. And I feel like that was my dad. It's not his fault. He just didn't know how to be emotionally present. So while we went hunting together, we went fishing together, we went on trips together. There was never an emotional connection. He never shared. Yeah, it took him. I was an adult before I ever heard him say "I love you" that I can remember. I still have never heard him say "I'm proud of you." That was a big deal. I feel like I was a pretty good student, did some big things, and had a family and kids and profession, and yeah, those are things that you would like to hear. But that's so he was more of that kind of hard, gruff.
So what did you learn from him then? What was like because that's something, a difficult side that you got from your dad, but what was a thing, a skill, an insight that you got from your dad anyways?
Yeah, I kind of talk about my parents as structure and chaos. And so my mom is a big believer and dreamer and encourager, and that's kind of a more of a chaotic thing if you don't have any structure around it. And so if I default to chaos.
Yeah.
Because my father, who was an engineer, had a lot of structure in his life. He's a former military, so had a lot of discipline in his life. Those things I'll say they were kind of forced on me, and yet I learned from them. And as I got older, I realized because my default is chaos, in chaos, very little gets accomplished. A lot gets talked about, gets dreamed about, thrown up on the whiteboard, but when it comes to executing without some type of structure and discipline. So I feel like that's what I received from my father, is that idea of a work ethic. Not that my mom didn't have a work ethic, but my father put it on me. I always had chores and work to do, and started a job when I was, I think, 15. To start earning money. It was like that was very important to work and achieve. And so I think that appreciation for structure inside my chaos and bring it together. And people have described me as structured chaos. So so that's no question. That's a big one that I received from my dad. And he dreamed as well, but a lot of his dreams he didn't follow through on. That's a very simple one. He used to talk about having a swimming pool, and he showed me pictures. He wanted to build a swimming pool, and we had a great house swimming pool would have been perfect, but he never did it. And so whenever I had a family, one of the first things I did is I started, planning out where a pool was going to go. I dreamed of that. And so,
I was talking with Caro in one of the other episodes about that. There's this thing, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, that the children have sort of the urge to, and that's an idea, but the urge to fulfill the parents' dreams.
Yeah.
So whenever they have unfulfilled dreams, the children usually come through and like have the feeling that they need to do something like.
Yeah, that's good. I hadn't thought about that. But
Yeah.
I would say yes. I think even as I'm considering that thought, I have 3 sisters. There's me. All 4 of us either have or had a swimming pool. And I've never talked to my sisters to find out if that would played into their, but that's very interesting to think about.
Yeah. For my dad was for sure that he wanted to travel. He loved traveling, but his parents and the situation he was in didn't really allow it. He had planned a trip to the US and he was so excited about it. And then I had to cancel last minute.
Yeah.
And I think he always regretted it.
Yeah.
And so here I'm
Here you
traveling.
are. Yes. Yes.
So
love
I
it.
think that brings up like a huge perspective to why we do things.
Yeah.
Just to another lens through why do I want to travel now? Why do I want to explore the world and do whatever I love?
Yeah.
I think that's partly my dad.
I completely agree. And it's very interesting. It makes me think of something related, unrelated. You tell me, but something else that I've learned through study is this idea that we tend to our view of God, if we have a belief in God, actually comes through how we experienced our Father.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I can tell you, and this is maybe a little left turn, but one of the biggest things in my life is that my dad was hard, I was afraid of him. Very, very, I'm a pretty big guy. He's significantly larger than me. He's
Okay.
6'5", I'm about 6'2". And so he's very dominant, very much rules, not so much relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't communicate. So, so my view of God a lot was a harsh, aggressive. He's angry at me most of the time
Mm-hmm.
because I've screwed up, and it took a lot to break that off. But it was true. I could look back and go, yeah, that's how I experienced. Now I never connected those dots until I was in my 40s, but I could look back and go, no, that is how I experienced my father, and that is a large part of how I viewed. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, super interesting to think about the influence that parents have, and very, as someone with children, very strong responsibility.
Yeah.
And how even now I have all adult children, but how I interact with them and how much I want to move from, I don't want to have a surface relationship. They know they can talk to me any. So, yeah, sorry, I'm taking a
No,
little left
perfect.
turn.
Like,
but yeah.
no, I have like two things I want to go into now.
Yeah.
So the left tangent that you just
Yeah,
took,
yeah.
I think I want to go a little bit further because you said, okay, maybe the perception of your dad brought you to how to perceive God.
Yeah.
I want to go deeper because I
Yeah.
think there's more. The way we perceive our parents, especially in the first 7 years of our childhood,
Right.
we are just soaking up everything they give us because I guess from the idea that they survived in evolutionary perspective, we take up everything so
Right.
we can also survive in a way, right?
Right.
And so whatever they think, they believe, they feel, as children, we're open. We take in
Yes.
everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so those little subconscious things, the way they think to talk to themselves, the way they think about other things, about other people, we just take in, even though they never say it really directly to other people, it's still there. We perceive a lot more things than we know.
Absolutely.
And so when you think about how is your dad probably talking to himself, is possibly, that's what in psychology we have that quite often, the way you talk to yourself is the way you talk to other people as well. So when you judge other people a lot, when you figure out what the problem is in a lot of the situations and you blame and whatever, it's probably coming from the inside.
Right.
So a lot of what was it? All judgment is rooted in self-judgment. So whenever you notice that in the outside there's something that you dislike, it's probably also an inside that you dislike. Because quite often the people that trigger you to some extent is a part of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge or allow to be.
Yeah.
And so how does that reflect? Is there something coming up for you now?
That's good. Yeah, no, I definitely think about, specifically in my relationship with my father. I've gone back and talked to my mother about my childhood, specifically 0 to 7, because I have almost no memories from there. And I said, where was Dad when I was young? And the first thing she said was, your father loves you. He's always loved you. You know that. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? What does that have to do with the question? And I said, yeah. And she said, he was starting a business and he was always gone. And so he was traveling. And when he was home, he just didn't know what to do with you because you were always different than he was. And so he just didn't have a lot of interaction. And so I had talked to a therapist. And the reason I was asking my mom is because my therapist said, you deal with abandonment. And I'm like, nope. He goes, well, where were your parents? I was like, married to each other in the house. And he said, ask more questions. And so I asked my mom this question. And that's what she says. And I'm like, wow. I said, I don't remember. I told my mom, I remember you teaching me how to defend myself. And she said, yeah. I said, I remember you using a big stuffed animal. She said, yeah. And everything from how to throw a punch, that was my mom, not my dad, which is an interesting, perspective. And so, yeah, I do definitely. I don't know if I'm answering the question because I just got a little bit off on my childhood experience.
Oh, good, Steve.
But that reality helped wake me up to a lot of things, specifically he's just you and I are just guys doing the best we can every day, right? And a lot of it came from how we were raised and our childhood and that kind of thing. But we still have made every decision. I tell people I've made every decision I've ever made. I've made that decision. Whoever influenced me, my parents, my dad, whatever, they didn't make that decision. I still made the decision, for better or worse, right? And so you go back and say, I look and go, he's a really good man. I mean, he loves people well, very well. I talk about my parents. They're always investing in other people and taking care of them. They're 85 and they take meals to the old people, and most of those old people are in their 70s, right? So they're very much about caring and serving other people. But he's not perfect, and he had never been a father to a son before I came along. And so he did the best he could. And I have to look at that and go through forgiveness and recognize that he really is a good man, an amazing man. We have a better relationship today than we ever have in our life. Mm. So it's come a long way. But that reality that I don't know all about his child. I don't know how his father raised him. Yeah. I don't know what influences he had that shaped how he then raised me. But we can learn from it.
And knowing that, what are some important values, not that you have for yourself, but you want to give to your children, or you gave, but what are some of the points that you feel like they should definitely know this or carry that with them?
Yeah. That's good. It's funny because you had sent me, one or two things that shaped my life. This question, part of the answer to this question is the second part. One of the biggest things that shaped my life is, again, when I was a young man, a child, my mom, as I was becoming junior high school in the States, which is 12, 13, 14 years old, she would say, John, you are born to be a dad. She would tell me that. And I guess I always enjoyed taking care of kids and playing with kids. And I was always kind to little kids. And she said, you were born to be a dad. And I took that to heart because she would say it all the time. And I began dreaming. Now, this is just the truth. I'm a young kid. I'm a teenager, 13, 14, and I start dreaming about having boys. So I wanted to have sons, and I wanted land to raise them on. And that became part of my dreaming. I named my firstborn son when I was in high school. I have a middle name that's unique. It's Graydon. Mm-hmm. And the name Chase back then was not a name, but I came across it and I thought, Chase Graydon, I like the way that sounds. And so I dreamed of being a father to sons when I was young, before I ever dreamed of being married, right? I had that thought. And so, and then, miracle or not, however you want to look at it, I have 4 sons, 2 of them ended up being adopted and 2 are, my blood children. And so this question is something that I've considered my whole life, is what do I want to instill in these sons? The first thing actually was a counter, right? So I told you I never heard I love you from my dad, no hugs, that kind of thing. So I determined my boys were going to know that I loved them from the earliest. I told them I loved them when they were still in the womb. I would crawl into bed with them and hug them and just show them love. My boys are all in their 30s, and I'll still hold them, tell them how much I love them. I'll text them from Bulgaria and tell them I love them. I want them to know proud I am of them. It's another thing that's, like I mentioned, I've never heard that. And so it's kind of the first thing, answer to that is really something that I didn't receive. I wanted to make sure. And no matter the good, the bad decisions I've made in my life, my boys, I can guarantee you, if you called and said, hey, how do you feel about your dad? Do you think he loves you? They would go, yes. I have a lot of questions. That's not one of them. I know, and so I was very determined to show them and give them as much love as possible. And then also to work, to have a good work ethic. Mm-hmm. I never wanted it to be to the extent that my father, because I believe that he came through, his parents survived the Great Depression. So he came through a different world, and a lot of it was performance and, you know, status and finances were a lot of part of his worth. He was a Texas oil man and experienced a lot of success as a Texas oil man. And so a lot of that was stuff that he would always ask about, how was I doing financially, and have you become a vice president yet? And, questions like that. So position and income were always a big part of that. I didn't want that to be. I wanted it to be about following your dreams.
Right.
So my boys are all three entrepreneurs to some extent. The fourth one is in Honduras and has a different life. He's an adopted son, but he's in Honduras. The other three are in the States. One of them runs an event company. He's an entrepreneur to the max. He's doing phenomenal. The other two are musicians. So they have other jobs that they do while they continue to work on their music. They're all in their 30s. And I tell them all the time, don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. And that's definitely a message from my dad is don't quit. Keep pressing. Keep pressing. So, yeah. Yeah. And I think it's hard, but they have passions, and I don't give up on your passions. You never know at the hardest point, biggest point of resistance just on the other side could be the biggest breakthrough. So, yeah. So those are some big lessons. Yeah.
So being proud and definitely loving you and the work ethic is really important for people.
Yeah. And not quitting, don't give up on your dreams. And that may be more my mom than my dad. It's hard to say, but I think it kind of ties into the work ethic a little bit, but his work ethic was about work. My, he's like, don't quit on the job. In my mind, it's like, don't quit on your dreams and whatever job that may be, but your dreams are more important than your job. And I believe that we are given individual dreams, but so much of our life, especially in the States and, I think around the world, you get a good job, but it's somebody else's dream that you're working for. They had the dream of starting that company to do whatever it is they're doing. And you end up with a position, and maybe you're fulfilling some of your dreams, but the majority of your time you're spending on your boss's dream, not your dream. And so I love the idea of that's okay. Those you don't have to only be about you all the time. You can work and help somebody else with their dream and still be fulfilling and moving your dreams forward. A lot of life is like that, right? It's not black and white. It's, you can hold those two truths at the same time that, yes, I'm going to continue pursuing my dream. And right now I'm helping someone else as well. But ultimately, I love the idea of each individual, living out theirs, whether it's inside of a company or as an entrepreneur or however it is. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
That's good.
That's good. And there's another topic I think that's awesome to talk with you about, especially like now we talked about sort of the father side.
Yeah.
But I think you also I know you changed quite a bit in the recent years, and then the topic is related to whatever masculinity or being a man means to you.
Yeah.
What was something that changed for you from when you were younger to now, what it means to be a man?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really great question. I was definitely raised in a extreme masculine culture, even though I had three sisters and a mom.
Yeah.
So just me and dad, but my dad was a very powerful force in my life and in family. And in fact, I can remember when I was 50, so not that long ago, realizing that at 50 years of age, I was still afraid of my dad. So that intimidating presence to be in charge, to always be right, to be dominant in any situation. Those were male characteristics that you don't cry. You never, never, never cry. I've seen my dad cry 3 times my entire life. Once when he died, or when his dad, he's still alive. Once when his father died. Once when we thought that my mom had passed away. She didn't. He got a message that was incorrect. And then the last time was actually when my mom got very, very sick, and he thought we might lose her. And that's it. And he's 85. Now, I have always been an emotional person, so I always had to stuff things inside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 58. I've never been in a fight. Maybe I'm a big enough guy, but I've never seen, but that was the thing. If I got in a fight, I needed to win. And maybe that's why I played football. It helped me get out aggressions. But the idea of shifting from this, nobody should know your secrets. You keep those inside because you need to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
And if you share things, other people they might use it against you. There's so many of those male characteristics that are just so poisoning. Kind of a loner, everything, you take care of everything. You're the maverick, you're in charge, the master of your own destiny type thing. And as I went through life, I did a lot of that. And I was still emotional, and I have been seen crying many times in my life, but as I've got older, it's come more and more and more. And the shift took place whenever I went through a divorce, and things that I had done in my past came to light. And all of a sudden, me being judgmental about other people started dissolving, because how could I judge somebody else when I had done so many horrible things myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden, this shift of reality that we're all just doing the best we can, learning the person, because of my secrets, I kind of hated myself, and starting to learn how to love myself, how to take care of myself, looking and seeing things that I ran to keep from dealing with my problems, and starting to get help from outside. That was another thing. I was a maverick, so I don't need anybody else's help.
Of course.
And the reality is we all need each other. And so to be in a position where I had no choice, I had no answers. And so I became involved in some men's groups where we talked about everything. And there's a group of men in the world right now that know everything I've ever done, good, bad, and ugly. And that has not taken away my power or my influence. It's actually added to it. I have influence because of my vulnerability in those areas that I never had before. And that's changed my life, and it's changed the life of other people. That vulnerability is probably the biggest thing. I mean, if you packaged up all the masculine traits that I was
Mm-hmm.
raised on and what I'm living out now, that's the single biggest shift, is that in every area of my life, I'm vulnerable, and it hasn't relinquished power or influence or impact. It's enhanced it. And I never would have believed at all. So
It's fun. The thing that comes up to my mind when you just say that, the shift from, I need to be tough and fight others, to what's vulnerability and sharing your secrets,
yeah,
brought up the movie 8 Mile from Eminem. Have you seen it?
no,
At the end, he is in a rap battle, and he is this person who lives in a trailer park and is like looked down on from the other people. And he went through like the stages. It was like a competition, and then he was in the final with the biggest dude.
Yes.
And he got to start. And how he started was telling all the things that he was usually being thrown at, that he's living in a trailer park and all the other things.
Yeah.
And he's saying, yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And then beats down the other person, basically, or he knows.
Yeah.
And then the other person has nothing left to rap towards him, to fight him, because all the secrets
are out.
He dealt with.
Yeah.
You can't attack me there.
Yeah. That's exactly
and so
right.
he had no point of attack towards him.
Right.
And that made him, in this scenario, invincible.
Yeah. You can't hurt someone who has no secrets.
Yeah.
what's somebody going to say to me? You sorry piece of, I'm like, I've already, yeah, that's who I was. It's not who I am. And it's actually not even my identity. And it's never, I may have taken it on as identity, but it was never my identity. It was something that I did, ever who I actually was, and definitely not who I am. And identity is so huge in all of this, which again, I think goes back to our parents in a big way. My mom's encouragement, that is part of my identity now, is encouraging and loving and pouring into other people to help them, but that when you get it all out there, what is anybody going to do to you? And it still happens every once in a while. I can remember a friend of mine. I did a presentation, and the person who introduced me said, "Yeah, John played football at Texas A&M." And my friend, who I went to high school with, who did not play college football but was a very successful coach, said, I wouldn't say he played football. He kind of took a shot at me. And I thought, wow, here I am, a grown man. I know what I achieved, and that still kind of messed with me. And I thought, wow. And then I thought, that's not on me. That's on him. He's got some kind of insecurities because he never played any college football, that he had to take a shot at me in a group. And I thought, that's all right. I have championship rings. I have experiences. I'm on television. I don't need him. I don't need him to approve or disapprove of me. But it still messed with me for a second. And it's interesting that even after you do all the work, there's still things that we're never going to stop getting better, right? And that's the goal. I want to be a lifetime learner.
And especially that situation, what you described, and you perfectly said, okay, that was somehow related to him.
Yeah.
Is I don't know if you heard the saying, which is hurt people hurt people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So the only reason, similar to the judgment, is rooted in your self-judgment.
Yeah.
What you have inside, you project outside.
Absolutely.
And so that's that you notice when you can be fine and okay with yourself.
Yeah.
Then you notice all those attacks from the outside. I was like, oh wait, that's a thing that he wanted to throw at me.
Yes.
But because I'm okay with who I am,
yes,
that just falls off.
Yeah. That's such a great point. I think about, you talked about the traits, and one of the things I mentioned that I was kind of, a male trait was always being right. And I was a very good debater. And, I whether or not I was always right, I don't know, but I thought I was, but I could really build an argument. And as I've gotten healthier and matured, the need to be right has just fallen off. I still have things I believe and think are true, but I don't have an agenda. I don't need to convince Julian of anything in this conversation. I can listen to everything you say and go, wow, that's a different perspective, or that's a great perspective. It may even be one I don't disagree. I don't agree with that perspective. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't need to change your perspective. I can just appreciate it. That is a massive shift in my previous life to who I am. I'm not perfect at it, but definitely. And it's really the ability to, they talk about, I don't know if this is true, but there's some truth in it, right? It's that there are two types of people that listen to listen, and people that listen to talk.
To respond. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. And so, and I think about that, there's no question. And it's still a struggle, I think, for everybody, because we're in conversation, right? So you're going to have responses to each other, but it's different when you're trying to win. So you're listening to find that hole in the argument that you can come back and expose, and I got him now kind of thing. I think it's part of the kindness quotient, right? How are we kind when we listen? Really listen. Not in order to fight or debate or to argue, but just to understand. And all of a sudden, when you do that, first of all, you actually get to know somebody instead of just the surfacey, stuff. But then you get to appreciate them. And I think you can appreciate someone, you be grateful for someone. It changes. Gratitude changes everything. It's such a major power. That may be the biggest power play we have, but it feels so like such a weakness.
Thank you for mentioning.
Yeah,
Yes,
saying thank
it's
you. When you
huge.
say thank you for mentioning that, I'm like going, oh, he told me thank you. It's like it is. It's like it's not a
Small.
manipulative thing.
No.
It's just a wow. I'm grateful. To have a grateful heart makes so much stuff kind of fall away. So yeah,
That was a big learning for about a year ago. And since then, every evening before we go to bed,
yeah,
we have to. It's a strict rule that we have to go through the day and find the things that we were grateful for that
I
happened
love it.
throughout the day.
That's so good. That's
And
so good.
that just, even though I'm like somehow pissed or I didn't like what happened like the hour earlier or something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now I need to find something grateful. Okay, actually, okay, I'm good. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
it was great.
It's so good. It's so good. I started doing I call it my morning practice.
Mhm.
And it includes some level of spiritual study, and uh, I do gratitudes. I write down my personal mission. I write down vision for how I want to live it out, just with keywords. But the gratitudes is I write down at least 3 gratitudes. I do it in the morning for the previous day, and it's just been a life changer. It's altered. No matter how you're looking at what's coming, to know that there's going to be things that you're grateful for, because they're always, no matter what it is, it can be the smallest of things, but usually it's bigger, and usually it's like relationship, like meeting you, meeting Carolina, Carol, Carol, is that how you say Carol? I'm
Got
pretty
it. Yeah.
close. Yep.
Yeah.
Meeting you all that first day and where that's gone, and feeling like that's going to be a lifetime relationship, in some ways. And gratitude for me, it seems so much to come back to people, and it's just, I think relationship is why we're here. Ultimately, that's it. To be in a relationship. Without that, why are we here? Just for me, I could never just live on a mountain by myself and think.
For me, it's actually even a bit bigger because I notice whenever I am grateful, it's not just that psychologically, it's a thing that you prime your mind towards finding more things you're grateful
Yeah,
for. So it's
yeah,
like, oh, you bring more positivity in your
yeah,
in your life, which is already
yeah,
awesome. But what it does to me is not only brings me a bit out of my mind, more into
mhm,
my heart. So
yeah,
what it does is when I find things I'm grateful for,
mhm.
can be just the awesome host that just gave us a salad and made us a salad
Right,
for free. Like just
yeah,
like, here, I thought of you and made a salad.
yes,
It's like that's just opening the heart so
right,
much
yeah,
that you are open for
yeah,
relationships, but also all other kinds of
yeah,
experiences.
that's good.
And so when I'm a little bit like stuck in my mind, thinking things through,
Yeah,
finding the logical thing, and then
yeah,
brings gratitude in, it just opens so much my heart towards the
yeah,
present. First of all, the present
so
moment,
good.
and also brings this idea and perspective towards what are all the other awesome things that I'm open for now and that I can
Yeah,
connect with people, but also things, animals, or just appreciating that we had this awesome room. So,
yes,
like,
yeah.
I
The omelet I had for breakfast.
exactly, like those little things are actually the things that have enough emotion to open your heart again, feel
Yeah,
good. And
yeah,
we just like, oh yeah, of course it's just an omelette, it's just like my breakfast,
yeah,
whatever. It's not a thing to be grateful for.
yeah,
But those things happen on a daily basis. And
yes,
if you find those on a daily basis and bring them back into
yeah,
your heart and feed yourself with this
yeah,
gratitude, you change.
that's good.
Your biochemistry is
Right,
changing.
right.
It's really insane and
Yeah,
really works.
yeah. It's so good that there's an area of my life that's new, and we don't need to go deep into it, but I'm in a relationship, and I never thought I'd be in another relationship. And because of some of my history, I struggle with believing I deserve the happiness that I'm experiencing and the love that I'm experiencing. And when I start having doubts that it's real, questioning whether it's real, one of my tactics is to go back and be grateful and see that the ways I'm being loved, see the things that she has brought into my life, and being very specific about her, and how my life is changing through that love, and that it is okay, that I do deserve this love. there's more coming into my life. And I always thought it was just going to be me solo.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy and the gratitude I have that I get to share it with someone so amazing who also is loving that she gets to share it with someone so amazing is a very, I can't stop that gratitude. And when I do start going, questioning things, coming back to that gratitude and having worked on gratitude for so long now, there's so much of recovery and change and all of that. It does. It's like, okay, wait, I've got a superpower. If I choose to go back, that this is something that can help change my biochemistry, literally, and change the way I relate to her and my feelings about deserving or not deserving or whatever. And it is through that gratitude.
Yeah, it really is this idea that if you feel grateful, you can't feel another emotion.
Yeah.
So, or you can't feel self-doubt or whatever comes out, right?
Yeah.
So when you go and get your body into that state, which is like in a state of open-heartedness and looking for the things that are good,
Yeah.
then you can't feel self-deprecating or self-doubting or thinking you're not deserving things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good. It's funny because when I think about that, because I've learned that, but I've also learned that you cannot experience anger and other things at the same. Like when you go, I call it going limbic. When your fight or flight brain takes over and you're just reacting wrath and anger. There's no logic anymore. There's you can't see, nothing in the world is clear because you're in that. And the fact that amazing reality that same thing happens through gratitude, through something so positive and so pure, and it can be about. It doesn't have to be about I don't know. I'm standing on the top of a mountain looking out over the sunset and the days. It doesn't have to be that. It can be the omelet. It can be, meeting a new friend. It can be just the very simple things in life that happen every single day, and usually many moments in every single day. So yeah, that's beautiful.
And also when we add on to that, on top of, it's not like the big moments in life sometimes, but it's actually the daily things that we do that lead us to those moments.
Yeah.
So we quite often just remember, this one trip that I made there, this awesome event, I don't know, petting the elephant, going skydiving, something. You remember that.
Yeah.
But all these steps every single day that got you there and created this mindset, this personality of you wanting those and being able to do that.
Yeah.
That's your life essentially.
Yeah.
Not just those little moments. So
yeah,
bringing in the importance of the gratitude in your daily life is, I think, so big.
That's so good. It's like it's maybe the ultimate form of self-care. Right? You take care of just that little simple piece of your heart. You're grateful every day for things. Yeah, that's excellent. I love it.
And you also mentioned on stage when you had your big speech and you were meant to for more. Also, this one little just throw, and you just mentioned on the side is, I was also struggling with self-doubt that was happening for you as well.
Yeah.
And what is something you mentioned already? Gratitude probably helped you with that.
Yep.
But it's quite often interesting to see. You're a big guy, and I feel like I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough for some reason. Where has that gone now? Like, where did you start out with the self-doubt? When did you notice?
Yeah.
And what did you do to sort of direct yourself in a different direction?
That's good. That's good. I mean, honestly, I think that definitely goes back to childhood and never feeling like I was enough for my father, no matter what I accomplished. And I won awards, a lot of things in junior high and high school, and then in college, and then ended up with a career in sports marketing with ESPN and Fox, big brands that are known around the world, and still didn't feel like I was enough for my dad. And so I feel like those doubts came from those early childhood experiences of not being enough. So if I wasn't enough for him, then surely I wasn't as good as I thought I might be. And so I think those are kind of deep seated. and then when we kind of talked about running, what do you run away to, addictions or behaviors that you don't want to kind of feed whatever doubt you have. Because whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, when they don't reject us, nobody's ever been rejected by a bottle of whiskey. They all they do is love us. And you deal with really healthy needs of desiring to be enough in very unhealthy ways. When all of that stuff from my past came out and I started dealing with it, initially the doubt was much heavier because all of a sudden it's all out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear of rejection or, doubts were massive. What I found is that, and I believe this for all of us, that one of the most powerful things we have in our life at any given point in our life is our story.
Mm.
And if parts of that story that we hide, that we're ashamed of, that we don't tell, to some degree, we're hurting the world. They're missing out on something that could help them because we're all jacked up in some way, form, or fashion. We're all amazingly incredible human beings, and yet we all have stuff. None of us has it figured out. And so when I got to that point where I got it out and then started telling my story, and it's a pretty yucky, there's a lot of yuckiness to it that led to divorce and things like that, and broken relationship with my sons that have now come full circle and healed, just personal, hurts that self-shaming and self-deprecating, that kind of thing. Once that stuff was out and I realized actually my story has the power to heal, and not that it's, not that I'm special or anything, just telling it and being brave to tell a story, whatever it is. I've heard people get on stage and talk about their struggle with weight and that being a big thing. And that's a big thing with so many people. Whatever it is, we all have things that we are ashamed of or that we've hidden. Once that came out, now clearly I was nervous this week before I spoke. So it doesn't is that like poof, it's gone. And you still have some insecurities, whatever age you are. But once that was out and I realized there's actually power in this and I want to influence the world, I still believe one of my, I love the fact that, Julian, you have everything you need in your power and possession right now to change the world for good. No question. I don't wonder that. I don't think, Julian's a pretty good guy. He's pretty talented. He's okay. He may do okay in life. No, I believe that you, through your heart, through your interviewing, the way you love so well, have the power to change the world. And I know that not just for you, but because we have a history of seeing one man, one woman step forward and change the world. I went to Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm on the streets. I wouldn't think this would make me emotional, but man, it hit me really hard. The guy that was showing me around said, we're on a street. And he said, on this side is where they would sell cotton and auction off cotton. And on this side is where they would auction off slaves. Tore me up because it's always been in a textbook, but it was sitting right there on a place where it happened. And then he showed us where Rosa Parks got on the bus and then refused. That took us by Martin Luther King's house that they had thrown a Molotov cocktail through the window and he was going to quit that night. And because of that event, decided to stay the course. One man, one woman, one person, one Julian, stepping out, being brave and changing the world. And I believe that can happen. Actually believe I'm not too old for that. Maybe in little bits and pieces, we do it all along the way, but it's not over, And so I still believe that we have that, and our stories are the single most powerful tool, and the experiences we've had, right, that we tell through those stories to truly be a force in this world and change relationships, change cultures, change nations. We've seen how one person can do a tremendous amount of damage, right? It goes both ways. So, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm pretty passionate about
Yes.
that.
Let's go. Let's go further in
No
there.
matter how far we are,
Yeah.
there's always more, and that's that idea of more. There's not oh, I'm going to get a bigger house or a nicer car or more paycheck, more impact, more influence, more positive uh, change in our world, whatever our world is, whether it's
Yeah.
a small town or a nation or the planet.
Okay. Then, since you brought it there, I wanted to save it for a bit later, but we're already here.
Yeah.
What is your vision for the world? So how could it be in the best possible way that you foresee it? Where could it go? Where could humanity as a whole go? In which direction? How do you paint the picture for us in the future?
Yeah. Wow. That is so. I have two thoughts. One is pretty well thought out and considered.
Hmm.
The other one is a little bigger, as you've asked that question.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the idea of kindness is a big part of it. In a world where being judgmental is not the norm, but being kind and curious is the norm, is really big. Not looking to see how I can hurt somebody or take advantage of them, but looking and seeing how I can love them right where they are. That across humanity, I think, would be massive, and that's a maybe a bigger ideal. Personally, we haven't talked about this,
Yeah.
but in my talk, I speak of your personal mission, and so I had this I don't know what you call it. I guess just an idea. Few years back, I was studying, like, I really believe this. I believe that you were made for a purpose, that there's a reason that you're on this planet.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or you're an atheist or you're a creationist none of that matters. I've never met anyone who did not say, I feel like there's a purpose for me being here. And they're struggling with finding. So I started wrestling that with myself because I'm thinking, okay, logically, if I believe that, and let's just play this out, and you can help me with this because
Yes,
this is
let's do
pretty deep in me. If I was made, let's use you. If Julian was made for a purpose
Hmm.
and he's able to identify that, it may not be perfect, but to the best of your ability, you're like, I exist for this reason.
Hmm.
And you have some definition around it. And then you are living that. So if you're here for a reason, a purpose, and you're living that out to the best of your ability throughout your life, my logic brain and also my very excited passion brain says Julian's life will be better
Hmm.
because that's why he's here and he's doing it. So his life should be better. And everyone he comes in contact with should be positively influenced because he's living out his purpose.
Yeah.
And it was, and this is just, I'm about to share something, I've only shared with a handful of people, but I started researching that and I thought, okay, what if this is true? Like
Mhm.
if I really believe it, this is powerful because if enough people buy into that concept and start defining the purpose and the best of their ability, living it out, that's life-changing for them and it's world-changing for everyone they come in contact with. And so, of course, I go to Google and I start searching this
Yeah.
ideation. And my thought is, okay, if this is true, what does it take to start a movement?
Hmm.
Like, how many people do I got to get on board with this idea?
Yeah.
And, man, it's kind of a big thing that I don't share a lot because part of me still feels like I'm crazy,
Yeah.
and people are going to think I'm crazy. And I've shared it with a few people who are like, that's I think you're thinking too big. And I know in my heart that's a good sign. If somebody thinks I'm thinking too big, then I'm probably not thinking big enough. But I found an article written by a Harvard professor that studied major movements throughout history.
Interesting.
It's super interesting because what she did was she studied all kinds of movements, both positive movements like the civil rights movement in the United States and negative movements in the Philippines and Hitler and things that were both had a hugely positive, because you wonder, how did so many people get on board, no matter whether it was a good thing or a bad thing? Like
Yeah.
you had a bunch of people that jumped on board to make it a movement. And what she found is that when you get a percentage of a population behind an ideal, that there can be lasting change. A smaller percentage, and it either isn't lasting change or no change. A bigger one is fine, but there's a tipping point where once you get to that percentage. And so ask you, Julian, you've been asking me questions. I ask you a question. What percentage of a population do you believe it would take to start a movement that's maintained?
I think I've heard that before.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But I don't know the exact number. It's either like between 1% and 3%, I think, somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Is that about right?
Yeah, it's actually between 3.5%.
3.5. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting because most people guess
half
I
the
was thinking it would be,
population,
at least 17, 18. So I thought, it's got to be small, like because of the way you lead into this story. It's got to be relatively small, but relatively small seems like in the teens, not 3.5,
Yeah.
And so I started doing a little research, and, you look at the population of the United States and it comes out to roughly 12 million, a little bit less than 12 million. So I round up to 12 million. I haven't initiated anything, but I have a URL for 12 million missions. And this idea, I don't have a master game plan, but I'm like, okay, if in the United States, a very influential place, 12 million people define and start moving towards living out their mission, what change could take place, not just in the United States, but around the world, because it is one of the, I don't know if it's the wealthiest anymore, but it's definitely a very influential country. And so, that's kind of the big thing. If enough people truly believe they have a purpose and define that and start filtering their life through their purpose. So I've shared this, that for me, I believe I exist to passionately inspire others to more of why they exist, of why they were created. And so it fits perfectly, all of this. And I defined that 20 years ago. And so now speaking and coaching is the platforms that I use. I used to do it in sports marketing and as a father and those type of things. I do it in every facet of my life because I think mission is in us. Mission isn't a job. Mission isn't a role that you play. Mission is in you. Now, in my belief system, I'm going to be in heaven someday, and I may say, hey, God, how did I do on that? Is that really why I was there? Because I kind of, defined that. And I went to my parents and I went to my spouse, and I've talked to friends to determine, is this, do you agree with this? And I get a lot of affirmatives. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is right. God may look at me and go, you were close. But here's the thing. I believe if we can get close, if we just start trying, if we believe we have purpose and we're trying to live that out, I think that's enough. I think that's where change takes place, and we're getting, even if it's not perfect, we're close. Yeah. And if we're close to our purpose, man, what a difference we can make.
Huge.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Because I think also, in addition to that, is a lot of the reason why we are angry at other people, why we're jealous, is because we don't feel like we're doing the best with ourselves, because we think we should have been bigger here or do more of that, have a better job, paycheck, whatever you said earlier. And that's like nagging on us from the inside. But if we know, or when we know in which direction to go, and that we just go to on our mission, try to figure out something for the community, not just for yourself, because usually it's bigger than yourself.
It's all about, if your mission is about you, there's something wrong.
Exactly.
It's got to be outward focused. Yeah.
And so if you do that and notice that it's for something bigger, it's way easier to work towards it, rather than if you're considering your own ego and your own identity. I need to look good and whatever. It's not about that. It's about you just investing time to that bigger goal and that bigger purpose. And I think then you let go of what the other people think of you, because you know that this is important to you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, I think about the thought that I don't know if this is true either. I'm not a medical, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, but I've heard it said that I've never met a depressed person who was looking forward. A lot of our depression, a lot of our sadness, a lot of our angst, like you just mentioned, regrets that
Yeah.
they come from focusing on what's behind instead of focusing on what's before.
Yeah.
And having a defined purpose and some vision of what it looks like when you're living that out points you forward. It doesn't allow you to, you may still have things in your past, like I do. I still
Of
get
course.
emotional and feel some shame that I'm still working through from things I've done in my past. But having vision for my future, and not just having vision, but moving towards that, has changed the way I interact with the world. And honestly, I recognize and feel that it's changed the way the world interacts with me. We're sitting here
Yeah.
because we had an interaction that didn't have anything to do with John. It didn't have anything to do with Julia. It had to do with just a mutual connection.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful thing. That reaction, if I'm sitting over there judging instead of going out and reaching out, I've robbed myself of a precious relationship with this gentleman in front of me
Yeah.
right now. And so, yeah, it does. It's altered the way I interact and the way I want to interact. There's so much, again, there's more to when we grow and when we open and break off all that shit that we grew up with,
Yeah.
or funnel it towards good. Some of it we can learn from, right? And use it.
And about, when was it? In Colombia, I think, was almost a year ago when I was there just walking down the street. A sentence came to my mind, which was, behind every stranger's face is a friend you haven't met yet.
I love that. Yeah.
And that comes exactly like
Yeah.
your perspective of the world changed
Yeah.
towards, oh, wait, that's a person. Let's see how we can connect.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, what is he thinking? Is it alone?
Yes.
He's the greatest, or he's lonely? Is he
Yeah.
depressed or whatever? Just
Yeah.
like reaching out and see what's there,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, that's so good. I think so. A little example of that is I grew up in a very religious, a lot of love and care, but very judgmental and very, we do this and we don't do that. We hang out with these people and those people are wrong. So I did not have, I don't remember having a Catholic friend. Now, this is just religious stuff, right? Just denominational even. It's not, I didn't have Catholic friends. I didn't have Muslim friends. I didn't have basically anybody that didn't believe like me. I had either surface or no friendship. I have friends now of just about every religious, and I don't have that friendship because I want to change them or convince them that they're wrong and I'm right. I just have that friendship. I just have a relationship. And relationship changes everything. Now we can have discussion. I can learn from what they've learned, and they can learn from what I've learned. I think our world gets better when we communicate. So, yeah, that's just an example of what you said. It's like,
I guess what we learned while traveling, now
Yes.
that opened us up so much more to how other people see the world, of what could be there as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's just exposing yourself to different cultures, open up your mind to so many new perspectives and ways of living that I would have never considered before that is a possibility, because you are so much in the mental model and the structure of how things should be and what's appreciated and what's disliked from parents or culture around you, that you're like, okay, I guess I have to do that. For me, it was like, I'm going to go and study mechanical engineering, go to a car company and do that until the rest of my life. That was literally what I thought until I was 18 or 19. So stuff changed after you're exposed to different ways of being.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. Travel is powerful. I spent 7 weeks in, most of it in Italy right after I graduated from college, and it shifted. You just experience things that, like I said, things that you just knew were in a textbook before, but now you're there and it's real. And these are people that are real and they have huge hearts, but they don't believe the same as you. They don't experience life the same as you, but they're so full of joy. I wonder what's going on here. Maybe it is okay for me to get to know someone who's different and for them to get to know me.
And something to add, yesterday, 2-3 days ago, Yannis had a talk as well, the Yannis production guy, who told a lot of stories. I think you saw it as well.
Yeah.
And he mentioned one number at some point when he was in Nepal that I think something around 26,000 euros is the top 1% of earners in the world.
Yeah.
Above that. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That puts you in the category of the wealthiest people on the earth if you earn more than 26,000.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of people that grow up just in Germany.
Yeah.
And Germany, like the average is barely below that.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. Just
Yeah.
think that.
Yeah.
And really understand that a lot of people that probably also listen to this and you
Mhm.
are above that. And you already have most of the freedom that you can, with the passport and the money, you can have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that really gave me another addition towards, after traveling to also Nepal, the Philippines, and not seeing life is very, very different in different places of the world.
Yeah.
And that we were very, very lucky to have the ability to do this now.
Yes.
And that just really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Just to add to what you said. And now let's go a little bit further into the direction we said. You already mentioned kindness and communication for this vision of the world that you can see in the future and that you work towards, right? With your mission. And if you could be, if the role existed to be president of the world, what will be a thing that you would like to do to change or to do?
Wow. I've never heard that question. That's a big one. I think maybe for me, first of all, I would never desire that, because with that type of role, it becomes very difficult to truly be who you are, because there's so many expectations. But let's assume that somehow I could.
You are feeling
still
just
be
the way you
me.
do right
Just-
now.
yeah, exactly
You're
who
just
I
like
am.
the chill John that I know.
Yeah.
And that from this point of view, you just have a bit more power to influence things.
Yeah.
So which way would you like to do that?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would desire is to truly be an example of the beliefs that so that when people look, they didn't see someone who said one thing and didn't there, but they saw someone who actually lived out
That's
the
integrity
values that he brought. Yeah. It's exactly integrity. I think then with that, again, I think with authenticity, people are not drawn to power; they're drawn to authenticity. And so, with that, I think you have an influence that's different. You're not going to win everybody over, but to recognize that we're all in this together, and that I had a discussion with a good friend, a very good friend, good man, really good man. But we had a discussion where he did not believe that everybody in the United States had equal opportunity to succeed. He's like, no, if you're born here, you have just as much opportunity to succeed as. And I said, okay, you were born into a household with plenty of income and parents that loved you and encouraged you and pushed you towards positive things. And you never had to worry about food or money or transportation or a roof over your head or any of those things. I said, now let me just take you to 30 miles south of town where someone grew up, did not have a father in the house, had a mother that had multiple men coming and going, was not sure if they would be allowed in the house any given night because of the situation going on inside the house, was beaten by parents that were the mom and any man who was in the house. I said, was pushed down, drugged down, told they were terrible and horrible and would never amount to anything. I said, you're telling me in your mind, you can honestly say that person has the same opportunity as you have. And he's like, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, he can still make decisions. I'm like, brother, I can't help you if you can't see it. So some people won't be able to see that. But I think if I was in that role and I could live with this true integrity and truly find ways to be kind, not to empower and not to what's the word I'm looking for? We're to not enable, but to empower. I think those are possibilities. I think it's possible to both help someone that needs help and encourage someone doesn't really need help, but maybe would rather, a lot of people would rather get $100 bill to make it through the day than given a job. Okay. I think we can help someone who actually needs some food and then encourage the person who isn't really, that's not their struggle, but I don't want to enable him or her. I want to encourage them. I want to inspire them that they're here for a purpose and moving towards that. Will there need to be some support along the way? Yeah, probably so. But we look, I think, and I come from the United States where there's this really individual, I come from Texas where we're even stronger on individuality and cowboy and, very much of a state that has a lot of wealth and has yes, been through a lot like the whole world has, but in the worst of times, Texas has done pretty well. And so you look and go, okay, maybe there's some mentality to that, but maybe we just live in a state with a lot of oil and a lot of reserves and a lot of natural, so it's like, am I really that smart, or am I just in a state that has a lot of good stuff going on, right? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm making the point I'm trying to make or not, but I do think that living with authenticity and finding ways through leadership to be kind, to be curious instead of judgmental, to look at how we can help each other wherever we are in the world instead of manipulate other parts of the world for our own benefit. Yeah. All those things I think would be huge. I would, like I said, I don't.
You don't dare to answer the question.
My mom would think I should be in that position, but yeah.
Because now all the things you said were how you would like to behave yourself and what you would like to do to yourself.
Yeah.
But you're avoiding the question
of what I would do in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the trick would be, how do I paint a picture for the world? Right. And we're painting a picture for the world. Mm-hmm. So if you just do it in one little city, there's so many different thoughts and beliefs and backgrounds. So to get everybody on the same page and when I said if I had that role, I would desire to paint a picture that everyone could relate to enough that they could get behind this idea of change. And this very interesting part of this question is that we all have that ability right now. There's some pretty big voices, and the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as communication and, everything technology wise, makes the world smaller, and travel takes place where we can't, my parents traveling as much as I do was never even a thought. They still look at me and go, how much money do you spend? I'm like, well, I don't have a mortgage. So I'm spending a lot less than I did when I had a mortgage. And I didn't think about that, but it still seems like a lot of money to travel. A $500 plane ticket versus a $3,500 mortgage, do the math. So, but we didn't have that before. So yeah, I do like to tell stories, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So do you want to answer the question still?
I don't even know if I can. Something? I don't know if I can. Yeah. I think if I could paint a picture of what the world could be, and I wouldn't try to change everything at once. I would want to paint this picture of kindness, of curiosity, and really of love that others could do with each other at any given moment. I don't think we win the world by argument. I think we win the world by love. And I just believe that. I think that power of truly having a heartfelt care for someone else is how we do it. Could I do that as a leader? I can't. I'm not going to dictate everybody has to love each other. It has to be a choice. So I do think it's painting the picture and living it out in person.
Says
I don't think I ever exactly got the answer, but
says the giant man from the US, just like lead with love, openness, curiosity, and kindness.
Yeah.
Wow, that's big. I
Mm.
think so, because the big thing, what I mean is because it's relatively different to how things are going on right now.
Yeah.
The voices are coming up a little bit more, at least in my little bubble, right? The
Yeah.
people that I follow and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So that's coming up more, but I think it's still a big step, especially from the background that you're coming, to say, okay, let's just go with kindness and curiosity and love instead of arguments and I'm right and you're
Can
wrong.
you imagine the world where the leaders said, what decision can I make right now that shows the most kindness towards the other person, the other party, the other country, the other whatever? Or if I say that I love, what does that look like in the decision I'm about to make about whatever the answer is? And it's muddier than that, right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
not.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not because you could argue that love is teaching someone to stand on their own 2 feet and figure it out. And I could argue that the best way to love them is to give them financial aid, and just and both of those have worked because some people receive the financial aid and use that to work and make their life better. Some people, when they're pushed to get up and stand on their own 2 feet, stand on their own 2 feet and find a way. So it's not an easy answer. It's not a black and white. I say I love you, so boom.
Yeah.
And it's very. I shouldn't say. I don't know if it's very rare or not, but I do think it's a challenge. If I ask you for money, because I think that's what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, hey, listen, I love you, but I'm not going to give you money. I'm going to encourage you to find a job, you can do this. I believe in you.
Yeah.
I may not feel loved by you.
Yeah.
Right. But you may have just loved me in a way that changes my entire life.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. It's hard on whether you're on the giving side or the receiving side. It's not easy. It is a muddy world that we live in. But being able to hold those two things at the same time and wrestle with them and talk it out and go, okay, maybe it's not just give them money, and maybe it's not just get up on your own 2 feet and fight for it. Maybe there's something in between there that we can create that actually encourages somebody to take responsibility, but at the same time supports with a level of aid that can help them, give them a fighting chance that they don't feel like they have without some level of support.
Yeah.
I talk about so often we go into other worlds trying to do so much good, and it's like we end up getting there and we spend so much time just trying to survive that we never actually have an impact. It's like my kids are musicians. They go to LA and they're going to change the world with their music. And then they get to LA and it's super expensive. And they're just trying to survive, and they don't get to focus on their music because so much of their life is just, how do I live another day? So these are real challenges, real struggles. So it's not an easy question, but thanks for asking it, because I've never thought that through. I just want to have a bunch of people define their mission statement and start living that way. Maybe I could do that as, okay, guys, the whole world is going to have a mission, and we're going to, follow this format. We're going to get there. Yeah.
Just create a mission statement, this sentence, and then we're all good.
Yeah. So we're all good. You don't even have to do anything else. You don't have to have vision or work at it or anything. Just a mission statement. Yeah.
And you mentioned it's sometimes very blurry or muddy when you don't know, okay, what's the thing to do? Should I give him money? Should I give him encouragement, support, whatever? And what comes up for me, or what came in that moment, was like, it's sometimes not always about the thing you do, but about how you do it. Because recently, like last year in Peru, we gave a woman 100 soles, which is like 25 USD. So we gave this person money, but in an envelope saying it's for your unfulfilled dreams or something along those lines in Spanish. And because we knew she wanted to go to a tourism event, which is like, I don't know, a special thing, because she was in an accounting career. Caudo mentioned that in the talk. She was in an accounting career, would love to give talks and tours and whatever.
Yeah.
And so we give her the money as a sign, as an
Yes.
encouragement for her to actually follow
An
her
investment
dreams.
in her dreams. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good.
And so that was, I think, because it came from such a place of love from the inside, that's why it had such an impact. If we were
That's
just
good.
giving her like $25,
Right.
okay, whatever,
Yeah.
a tip or whatever we could have given.
Right.
But what I wanted to add there is just, if you feel the integrity with yourself, that this is coming from a place of love from the inside,
Right.
I think it can only do good.
Yeah.
That's my belief. I don't know if it's true.
No, I believe so too. Even if the short term you maybe don't see that or can't see it, long term it gets there. You think about the way parents love children.
Yeah.
So often it doesn't look like love if you're the kid.
Yeah.
But when you're in your 30s, you're like, wow, I'm so glad my dad taught me to get up early and go to work. Just little things that helped set a pace for what matters.
Yeah.
So but sometimes you don't see it but it is love. Yeah, I love it.
And I think we talk now a lot about the vision, the idea, the thing to imagine, and maybe having these things. But what are now, I guess, going towards the end and going more practical, I want to leave people with something that it can impact, and also myself, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
What are maybe 2-3 of the most important things for you that keep you in line with your mission, that keep you in line with creating actually that vision, that future that you described, the one of curiosity, kindness, and love? How do you do that on a practical manner day to day? How does the dirty work look like?
Yeah, that's good. For me, the plan. So I talk about defining your mission, having vision for what it looks like when you're living that out, and then the plan of action that you actually put together, plan and act on it. That is the hardest part for me. I'd way rather dream and vision, and work on that. But the practical side of day to day doing it is hard. And so, for me, the way I've approached that is to break it down into the smallest pieces. So I start my morning a certain way, and I do it in such a way that I can do it. Now that I'm a nomadic, I do it in such a way that no matter where I am on the planet, I can do it. So, for instance, I run. I don't go to a gym because I might find myself on an island. There's no gymnasium. There's no weights to pump or whatever, but I can run down a beach. I can run pretty much anywhere. So far, everywhere I've been, I could run. In the mountains of Bulgaria, I can run.
Yeah.
And so I have kind of identified key areas of my life. One is the spiritual, and so I have a spiritual practice to strengthen and make that a focus on a daily basis. And it's small.
Yeah.
It's not 4 hours. It could be, but I have multiple areas of my life that I want to move forward. And so I identify areas in each of those things in each of those areas that I focus on. And specifically, my morning starts the same. And chaos is my default, right?
You need that in order to stay online.
Yes, I have to have that structure. So in the mornings, I wake up and I write out my vision, my mission. I write out my vision, and I write out my gratitudes every morning, no matter where I am. Generally about the same time, which for me is generally around 5 a.m. And then I move from that to learning something. Just general learning, which can be about speaking, for instance, in my life, and how to be a better speaker. Sometimes it's about something I'm really interested that has nothing to do with. It's just kind of another area, something I want to be a lifetime learner.
Yeah.
Something I'll meet someone and they'll bring something up. I'm like, I don't really know anything about that, so I'll spend some of that time in the morning in that area. I have developed a meditation practice, which I've never had before in my life. In fact, I think from my history, my childhood, I would have been told I was a, nutcase if I meditated. It just wasn't part of what I grew up around.
Yeah.
Now it's essential to get quiet, to be present. I think maybe one of the most undervalued actions in the world. Like I I think it'd be great if I had taught my children how to be present in a moment, because we are generally focusing on the past or looking forward to the future, but not just being okay with right where we're at.
Yeah.
And so meditation's done that for me. I had one of the meditation teachers, she said that the art of meditation is recognizing when you've been distracted, stopping, coming back, and beginning it. And I thought, okay, super simple, right? But boom, for me, I'm like, wow, that is life. We get distracted. We start chasing rabbits. We get upset. Let something bother us that should. We compare ourselves. Whatever it is that that is the distraction. We always have the possibility. And in the Bible, it talks about God's mercies are new every day. This idea that we have a moment by moment, we have the opportunity to stop, come back, give ourselves grace, and recognize that we can begin again. We don't have to spiral off. We don't have to disappear into oblivion. We can come back and begin again and be present in that moment. And that's what meditation has really done for me. And I feel like it's another thing I'll be learning my whole life and growing in my whole life. And then physical exercise is the other thing that I do in the morning. That is,
Other than running?
yeah, well, running, and then I'll do something, push-ups, sit-ups. I'll do something else with the body, but with body weight, so I can do it anywhere I am. Most of it is with running, walking and running, mainly just because I had gained a lot of weight. And so that cardio that's my biggest thing, is just keeping the pounds off. I'm not worried about, being a bodybuilder. I don't play football anymore, so I'm not as worried about the strength things, but I am doing things in my life as I've gotten my weight under control to add back in that are strength training and uses different muscles. So I am engaging, and to some extent, I'm engaging soul and spirit, mind with learning and meditation, and then physical body and exercise. Those three things are kind of every part of my morning practice every day. Then after that, I feel like I'm set up to work on the world changing stuff, to be released and usually before noon, I try to have done some major work towards creating a new speech. I've been really challenged about writing a book, which I haven't started yet, but that's going to take a very disciplined, and that'll have to happen in the morning. But I try to make the mornings where everything missional takes place, that I'm taking steps every morning. And when I have a bad morning, or when I get derailed, or when I'm traveling, that I go, it's okay, John. I used to just beat myself up. What's wrong with you, man? You got to be disciplined. You got to get on top of this. And, maybe I call it Cruella. I used to call it my dad. I don't do that anymore because I don't think that's fair to him or true. I have a friend that calls it the shitty committee, that thing's going on in your head. I have to fight that off and go, you know what? Just do one thing. Just do one thing that moves your dreams forward, and be okay that it was just one thing today. Tomorrow it might be a bigger thing. Tomorrow it might be something that catapults it into, wow, didn't see that. You never know.
But here you're bringing kindness back, just also to yourself, to the inside.
Yeah. And that is, I think those that know me most know that that's one of my biggest challenges. I had a mentor that one time, we spent time together, and I was in a pretty healthy, I thought we had a great conversation. But when we were leaving, he said, will you do me a favor, John? And I said, sure. He said, tell my buddy John, he's looking at me, and he says, tell my buddy John to put the bat down and quit beating the hell out of himself. And I didn't even realize I had been doing that in our conversation, but apparently the whole conversation I had been beating myself up over things I hadn't done well or didn't do well enough, whatever. And I thought, wow. And so that's a big one for me, to continually learning to be, I can encourage you to be kind to yourself, and I can be kind to you.
Yeah.
Being kind to myself is still an area that I'm growing in. I think I'm much kinder. I know I'm much kinder than I was.
Yeah.
But it's still a growing experience for me. Yeah.
And if I give you another 30 seconds to create a message that you would like to share, which one would it be?
Oh, wow. Oh, I believe with all my heart that you, I, everyone on this planet is here for a purpose. Leaning into that, learning that, moving your life towards a vision of what that looks like, because it's different for you than it will be for me, than it will be for the women in our life or our children or anything. But you truly were made for more. So wherever you find yourself right now, that's not the end. And if it's not the end, we still got some great stuff ahead of us. And so that would be the message is you were made for more. There's more for you, more life, more purpose, more meaning, more influence, more world change. And I think if we keep moving towards our more, I call it like the center, right? If that's our target, is the center of our, when we're living out our more, we're on mission, we have vision, and we're working towards it, you feel so fulfilled. You're doing this podcast, and it's part of it's part of your more. There's no question. So when we finish this, you're not gonna trudge. You're not gonna like, oh, that was a beat down. I got to go back to my room. No, you're fired up. I already see it about you. You're excited about this because it is right in the middle of what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm feeling the same way, and I'm on the interview side. But when I got off the stage, even though I had been nervous, I didn't feel like it was my best effort. Some of those things were going through my mind. I was still like floating down. And then when people came and there was positive influence, and I've had people reach out to me that want to talk about what it means to live out your more and move towards more, I'm like, that's it. I mean, I'm if I'm not in the center of my more, I'm definitely moving closer. I think that's the life journey. Life happens all along the way. But if we have a focus on living on mission and vision for what it looks like and a plan for making it happen, and vision and plans always get tweaked all through life, but that's the journey, and we're getting closer to that. We're going to have the most amazing life and adventures, whether you're a traveler or not. We all find ourselves in different circumstances. We're moving towards that. I think the fulfillment through the impact, even through the hard times, become not just bearable, but we can see them as part of the greatness of our story and not the yucky parts of our story. Like our yuckiest parts are still influenced who I am today. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So good. I love you, Julian. You're a good man.
Awesome. You listened to the full episode. Your investment to a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. Now you can make a commitment to yourself and help others discover this podcast simply by subscribing and following the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I hope to see you here soon again for the new episode dropping every other Thursday. Talk soon.